Wisdom is in the sight of him who has understanding. Proverbs 17:24. But the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. Wisdom is in the sight of him who has understanding, meaning someone who has understanding can see wisdom as though it were standing right in front of them. But to the fool, it is invisible. To the fool, it just blends into the background. To the fool, it's not there. The fool's eyes are on the ends of the earth, which we have to put these two together. And coming up soon, we are going to have a lesson specifically on where we're going to make a comparison of two proverbs, and we're going to look at how to interpret a proverb. That's what we're going to do. But we have these two sides, two parts of a proverb. First part is that it's the one who has understanding. The second part is the one who is the fool. All right, the fool looks and sees nothing. It is though wisdom is invisible. His eyes are on the ends of the earth, meaning probably or possibly that the fool is looking for something but cannot see it. He's looking for an answer, or she's looking for an answer, and cannot see it at all. But it's right there for anyone to see who has understanding. And Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 14, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. I think it's saying the same thing, just in different words. Hebrews 5 and 14 speaks of those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to determine, to see right and wrong. It is by reason of use that one gains understanding. And it's not enough to have heard it. It's not enough, the wisdom from God. It's not enough to have read it, the wisdom of God. It's not enough to be able to recite it. It must be used and put into action. Otherwise, it doesn't sink in. And the meaning has no meaning to you. Now, we come to verse 25, and this is connected back to verse 21. It's the same theme. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. And so, yeah, it's making the same statement of verse 21. He who begets a scoffer does so to his sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. So a foolish son is a grief to his father, bitterness to the one to her who bore him. So to father and mother, someone who is a fool, well, there is shame and there is reproach. There is grief involved in this. And yes, you can have a fool come from any family. That's just the way it is. You can have a fool that just arrives from any family. It is not somehow set because you have a righteous father and mother that all their children are going to be righteous. That's not set. They can be trained, they can be taught, but that doesn't always mean they're going to live by it. It doesn't always mean that. And most certainly, parents who did not teach their children can definitely have children that are worse than themselves, and not by a little bit. Children who are far, far worse. And but here you have this idea of the bitterness of those that brought him up. Now, verse 26 also is connected to verse 23, and also verse 8 and 13 and 15, and also going on to chapter 18 and verse 5. But it's an ongoing theme, and we spoke of this last week of being in chapter 17, this being addressed by way of several proverbs in chapter 17. Now there'll be more yet to come, but this has to do with justice. Also, to punish the righteous is not good, nor to strike princes for their uprightness. So this is truly injustice. Someone who is doing good being punished for doing good. That's what you get. As Isaiah chapter 5, beginning in verse 20, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. What does that even mean? Continuing on, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes. So what does that mean? That means that which is intrinsically good is now made evil, considered evil. We've switched everything up. That which was evil is now considered good. All right, that's a satanic thing to do. That it has Satan's fingerprints all over it. What was known to be good now is called evil, and good is now punished for being good. Someone who does a good act can be punished for it, and guess what God's going to do to the one who punishes? There's going to be vengeance on that. And we've already seen where that's an abomination to the Lord. We see it's already an abomination. But here we have the wicked refuse to do justice. That's from 21 and verse 7. And righteousness here is struck down. And where a prince is trying to do what is righteous and is there are those who want to punish him for doing it. Those who are after him to do it. And I don't know of a better example of that particular situation than David, except to bring in the Christ. Now David was, all right, so, Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000. Or it's the other way around. I can't remember. Not that it matters that much. David didn't make that up. Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000. David didn't make that up. It's the women who were praising the victories of Israel. That's what they were doing. That's all they were doing. And it was something just happened that was praiseworthy. Was it an unrighteous act to kill Goliath? No, not at all. Was it an unrighteous act to be jealous and suspicious and now despise the best hero you have in your army and a very righteous man who had the faith to go up and face Goliath? Now that's wicked. That's wicked. To now despise that person, to now want to kill that person. That's wickedness. He has done a great act, being praised, and rightfully so. But now Saul wants to do everything in his power to destroy him, including giving him a daughter as wife who he hopes will be like a spy or an inside person to help him do whatever he wants to do against a righteous man, against David. Now, we can also talk about Christ, and it would be more so. What did Christ do worthy of death? Nothing. And everyone knew it. Nothing. Even Pilate knew it, but Pilate had no backbone. Pilate knew it. Everyone understood that this is a righteous man, and there's a lot of things he has been doing Why would you want to stop that? He's performing miracles. He's healing the sick. He is uh, teaching in a way no one ever heard anybody teach. The wisest, the greatest of the rabbis, the greatest of the teachers, none of them spoke like him. And now you're stopping him. Now you want to destroy him. Well, is that a righteous act to destroy a righteous prince? No, that's wickedness. And here is this injustice of punishing what God protects, punishing what God wants out of us. You're going to punish that, which means you're pushing everyone to do wickedness, is what you're doing. You're pushing everyone to do that. Now, I'll just make a modern day sort of illustration because it works. It used to be with the homosexual movement, just be quiet. Say nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Do not oppose it. Treat them all as though this is legitimate behavior and all will be well. All right. So, say nothing. We go to the next phase. You're saying nothing, that implies you're against it. Therefore, you must be public about all of this, of your acceptance of it. I want to see brochures and other materials in your office, on your desk. Then it goes from there. It's not enough to have your desk and your office decorated this way. You must be vocal, completely vocal in acceptance. Well, what is the next move? What's the next move in that? Because every step of the way, it is made to seem like it is a moral right. That is morally right to accept and be vocal for the entire homosexual movement. Well, it's never right. It's never right. It is completely against the design of God, completely against the laws of God, going back a long way. Now, to punish the righteous is not good. So you allow the righteous to thrive. You allow them to do what is right. Same thing with a prince who is upright. You support that prince. Now we come to verse 27. And from verse 27, so we have 17, verse 27, then 28. Then we get to chapter 18, 1 and 2. All four of these verses actually are linked by way of subject. And it's an interesting way in which it has been arranged in this, because the first two are that of keeping quiet. It all has to do with speaking and tongue and influence. But here is the first one is that of keeping quiet, and the next two are that of not being quiet at all. So, verse 27, he who has knowledge spares his words, and a man of understanding is of a calm spirit. Here is the indication of some wisdom. And we'll come to the next one in all that. The one who has knowledge spares his words. He doesn't need to say much. And he doesn't have to spend words making up a plausible story. He doesn't have to do it. Someone who has knowledge spares his words. Have you, I don't quote Shakespeare very often at all, but from Hamlet, there is, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. All right, why? What's with the protest too much? Well, someone who is innocent would claim their innocence, but someone who's guilty and doesn't want to be found out that they're guilty is going to protest louder, with more words, with threats, with whatever is needed in it. And you have probably heard that uh, and I've heard police talk about this, of when they're interviewing someone, if someone is giving short, concise sort of things, where were you on June 15th last year? You know, and a concise thing would be, well, I'm not sure, but I think I was home. Uh, but someone who is lying to you, who begins to talk, is going to begin bringing in detail after detail after detail, and this and that and the other, and they're making up a story and trying to make it plausible. That's what they're doing. And that they speak of someone who doesn't say a whole lot, just answers the question directly, is someone who you can't really tell, but someone who's probably telling you the truth. They don't have to go into this enormous tale as to what they were doing, why they were there, what happened, and all the weird things that may have occurred that landed them there. He who has knowledge spares his words, and a man of understanding is of a calm spirit. He can just keep his words short and simple. And here is that indicator of a calm spirit, that they are sparing their words. And here's that indicator of wisdom. Now we come to verse 28. And this is similar to a saying we have. It's not a saying that is a proverb. It's not a saying that's found in the Bible. What is that? Best to keep your mouth closed and people think you're dumb than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, I think. This is similar to that. And it is, even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. So silence is actually uncharacteristic of a fool. Silence is uncharacteristic. And from Proverbs 29:9, a fool rages or laughs. All right? In Proverbs 14:16, a fool rages and is self-confident. And it's entirely unlike a fool to remain quiet. But if you do, you can be counted as more calm, as more rational, and as is put here, considered perceptive. But I mean, it's only as deep as that. It's just considered that way. It doesn't not to mean that a fool is among the wise, but is thought of being among the wise. So here is this idea of keeping quiet, or that calm spirit. Now we come to chapter 18, verse 1. This is not being quiet at all. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wisdom. Now, this can seem kind of an unusual way of saying something. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. And this is one of those things where, or what does that even mean? Well, having the next part to that helps us understand the first. And as we will go over soon, is that the first section, the first part of a proverb is the beginning, and it sets up the next part. And the next part directs the whole idea, and there's more of an explanation. And with the next part, you get the full meaning. But of course, you have to take it all in. You can't just take the second part and say, I know everything this is about. You can't. But a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. All right, let's look at that first. So a man who isolates himself. Well, this would be this narrow focus on what he wants. And don't think that a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire, that is necessarily like, oh wait, well that's a nice bit of ambition, or that's a nice bit of uh, going after what he wants, and that it's necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But a man who isolates himself, we see he rages against all wise judgment. That means he's going to isolate himself from what? From anybody else trying to help him. He's got from any kind of wise judgment, he doesn't want to hear it. All right? A man who isolates himself and he's after his own desires, that's a self-willed man listening to no one. That is someone who is self-confident. That could be called an egotist or a narcissist or just arrogant or overly confident. And this does describe a man narrowly focused on a goal and takes no advice or assessment or opinion, as there can be no better judgment than his own. You have met them, I have met them. You don't want to be one of the person where they know how to do it and you don't. All right, every now and then we talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it is a psychological thing. The Dunning-Kruger effect of where someone has convinced themselves they're pretty much an expert in anything. That they have convinced themselves they can't be wrong. They've convinced themselves that it doesn't matter what the experts say or what other people say, they know they've got it right. All right, it's also called Mount Stupid, and you may remember that better than Dunning-Kruger. I do, but it's called Mount Stupid, where they have convinced themselves that here is this new subject. Somehow they don't need anybody else's advice on it. And maybe you've tried to teach someone who didn't know how to do something. You're trying to teach someone how to do it, and they don't want to do it the way you're teaching them. They have their own idea as to how it should be done. So how long have you done this? Well, they've never done it. But it seems like this should be the way that it's done. Maybe you should ask the person who's done it for a number of years. Maybe you should do that. And maybe there is an idea that didn't come from you that's actually legitimate. And this goes with this next bit, verse 2. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. Okay, here is someone, he is not there to understand, does not want to know. He has no delight in understanding. But he is proud to reveal what he thinks. He's proud to let you know his opinions while not listening to anybody else. He doesn't want to understand, but he will most surely tell you about himself and his opinions. He will most surely do that. And here is the whole thing of, let me tell you what I think. Let me tell you how the way it is. Well, just okay, go ahead and express what you think, but that doesn't mean you're right. And we also have another saying that empty wagons make the most noise. All right, you know it. Yeah, empty wagons make the most noise. They're if it has a lot of weight to it, they're just kind of going over the ground and over the rocks. They're not bouncing. I'm talking about wagons. When they're empty, then they're going to be bouncing, and they make a lot of noise. Someone, a fool, is going to make a lot of noise, especially when they decide they want to chime in. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. That's his delight. There it is. His delight. And with a fool, you never can tell what may be on tap for today. You don't know what just may roll out of their mind today. Now we come to verse 3. And this is a thing of um, uh, action, reaction, and cause and effect. Or when the wicked comes, contempt comes also. So one follows the other. And with dishonor comes reproach. Okay, now we're going to compare that with another verse in just a second. But when the wicked comes, what's the wicked going to bring? All right, let's just put it this way. We'll do two other things. With a swamp, there will be mosquitoes. Okay. One follows the other. With a swamp, there's going to be mosquitoes. Or with a swamp, there's going to be, and you can just name other things that you can find in a swamp, depending on where you are. There could be alligators. Depending on where you are, there could be, ground you can't even walk in. That with one comes another. And here is this person who, in arriving, is when the wicked comes, contempt is going to follow. Contempt is just one follows the other. With dishonor comes reproach. That just happens. Now, let's look at verse 12 because these two are very similar. Before destruction, the heart is made haughty, and before honor is humility. This is another thing of one following another, of action, reaction, or cause and effect. Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty. So that would mean before, before a fall, there is pride. Pride comes before a fall, I should say. And so that a haughty heart is going to see destruction. Humility is going to see honor. And this is, of course, it's phrased differently from verse 3. It's phrased differently, and also incorporates honor and humility in this one. But it's just this obvious effect. When there's one, you're going to find the other. Now we go to verse 4. The words of a man's mouth are deep water. So this goes right into speech again, and we're going to have more connected to this idea of speech. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. So we take the second part to look at the first part. So the words of a man's mouth are deep waters. Well, and a wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. Well, that would mean that these are wise words. These deep waters are, in fact, wise words. And we can see Proverbs 13:14, the law of the wise is a fountain of life. 14 and verse 27, the fear of the Lord is a fountain of life. Here's this wellspring that is there. And this would mean that the words of wisdom are deep waters. That's what it would mean. Now we'll go to verse 6 as just because it's connected to it. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's lips goes into contention. Well, he's just asking to be punished. As someone might say, he's looking to get punched. All right. There's contention. You get into, and this isn't talking about that of being in a place where there is law and order, and necessarily in that. This is just daily life. You try to bring contention among people, yeah, you're just calling for blows, is what you're doing. That's, and once again, cause and effect. Now, we go to verse 5, and verse 5 is also going back to that theme that we saw in chapter 17 concerning uh, injustice. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. This is more toward what expressing in the similar fashion as Isaiah 5 in verse 20 and 21, as we read earlier, that you now have evil is good, good is now evil, night is day, day is night, or darkness is light, and sweet is now bitter, and bitter is now sweet. It's the same sort of thing. And there's that pronouncement of woe to the one who's doing that. That's in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. It's pronouncing that woe. It's not good to show partiality to the wicked. All right, it's not good. We can use that in our own English sense of things and in our own country culture of thinking it's not good to do something may mean in someone's eyes it's preferable not to do something, but you have an option. It's not good to do that. It's not good to do that in this sense is there will be woe attached to that. Because Isaiah 5 is saying the same thing. There's woe in showing partiality to the wicked. Of you allow the wicked, you protect the wicked, and you destroy the victim. You protect the wicked, and there will be more victims. Wickedness, evil will not leave your house. It's there. And you're going to have a hard time cleaning it out. You can. You can. You can go a long way, we'll just say that. But like with what God told through Nathan, told David that the sword will not leave your house. You have done this, and because of this, this has affected your children. And it has affected anyone associated with your house. And the sword is not going to leave. There will be violence in your house, and there was. And but we have this idea of if you are giving priority to the wicked, if you are showing them preferential treatment, that you are treating them as though they are the victim, then you have destroyed innocent people, and the wicked will continue in their wickedness. And just yesterday, I was watching a thing with Catrice. It concerned a man in England who is called the teacup poisoner. And he had killed his stepmother, and did he kill his father too? Yeah, he killed it as younger, when he was young. He was just a kid when that happened. Yeah, he killed by poisoning them. And he was sent to an asylum, and then after only a few years was released back out in the public again. All right. And could this be that he's insane? Yeah. Could it be that he's just extraordinarily wicked, and you're not going to get that? You're going to need to make sure you protect everybody else. Either way you look at it, you need to try to protect everybody else. And they let him out, and literally a few months later, there are people dying around him. Well, for those who knew where he just came from, being released, they would know, oh, these people are being poisoned. That's what's happening. These people are being poisoned, and he's the one doing it. He's the only one not getting sick. Don't you see? Something is up here. Something's up. And so here that wickedness must be handled by way of justice must be. And that someone who is willing to murder at this point in their life, maybe they have given up every privilege to continue to exist. And I do mean capital punishment. And someone who is willing to kill their father and stepmother, maybe they're going to be willing to kill anybody else. And so it could be for the sake of protecting everybody else, they have lost all right, all privilege, all everything to continue to exist, and maybe being rid of them is the answer. And I'm not saying that without Scripture being very firm on that. But it's not good to show partiality to the wicked. Now, granted, it is up to the judge. The judge can have some leniency, that's for sure. But you don't overthrow the righteous in judgment. I believe that you can give a man another chance. I do believe that, but you keep an eye. Now, if somebody has done something like murder, they don't need another chance at that. But you overthrow the righteous in judgment, that is wicked, absolutely wicked. And of course, showing partiality is not leniency. Showing partiality is not giving someone another chance. Showing partiality is where I admire what you did, I appreciate what you did, I'm leaning toward you, and either by way of bribe or by way of lifestyle or by way of I really didn't like the person that you murdered, or whatever it is, giving them partiality, that is a wicked thing to do, and not to be confused with showing some kind of leniency. Not to be confused with that. Now, let's in talking about verse 6, I shifted back to verse 5. But a fool's lips enter in contention, and his mouth calls for blows. Verse 7, continuing on, a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are a snare of his soul. It goes right back that someone who cannot filter their words, well, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. I know of or knew someone years ago that was a point of pride for them, that they said everything that they thought. That's not a virtue. They saw themselves as being courageous, as being blunt, and that you're going to know where they stand on you or anything else. And maybe there should be a damper. Maybe there should be something to kind of filter that out. No one needs to know everything going through your mind. And there needs to be a filter. And a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. You leave a trail of people who dislike you because of what you have said, and what you have said is not really good. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't teaching anything valid. It was, or anything helpful in the least. It wasn't encouraging. There wasn't anything of any value to it. It was either insulting, or it was demeaning, or there was, and that's all it was. That's all it was. You haven't helped anybody. Now, when Christ speaks in Matthew chapter 23, woe to you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, in calling them hypocrites, he is giving them valid judgment. That would be the judgment of God. And he is calling them this for a reason. One, so that someone among the scribes and the Pharisees can make their way out of it. learn and do right. Also, just as important, those who follow or admire the scribes and the Pharisees can learn the truth about them. So there was something valid in what Christ was saying. He's not just blurting things out for the sake of insulting them, for the thing of embarrassing them or humiliating them, just for that sake. He enjoyed doing it. It was for a valid reason. Now, as opposed to a fool's mouth is his destruction and his lips are a snare of his soul. Yeah, you don't know what he's going to say. He's just going back to verse 2, he's just expressing his own heart. And that sounds, romantic. We can romanticize that thing, but that's not the intent of it. Expressing his own heart is just telling you what he thinks, is what he's doing, without having any kind of understanding whatsoever. Now, verse 8, the words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the innermost or the inmost body. All right, here is the talebearer, the gossiper. That's not good. Gossip is either telling it or wanting to hear it is not a good character to have. We talked about, the first thing that I think of are the old tabloids. And I guess some of them are still around. Yeah, I know they are, perhaps in another form. The National Enquirer. Yeah, and there were others in competition to it. And in other countries, they have the similar thing. And there are certain things that are just going to be universal, that across mankind, that you'll have those who want to tell the dirty secrets, and you'll have others that want to hear it. You'll have an audience for it. And so they do go down like these tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. That it settles right there. And being a talebearer, being a gossip, and we showed a distinction between someone and this has been a few weeks ago, someone who is gossiping as compared to someone who's telling you something you need to know. There is a need to know basis, and they are telling you this. And it's not a thing of gossip, but it's a thing of trying to help. And like I said, if you have a little boy with a friend who has a friend, and someone comes to you and tells you, "I'm afraid that friend is a drug dealer," is that gossip, or is that someone trying to help you and trying to help your son? Okay, that there is a distinction that should be made, and someone who delights in such things, well, that's going to tell you something about it as to the intent. But we will continue next week. We have run out of time, and thank you, everybody.